And we're back, dear viewers. Welcome our guests. We're so happy to have, and of course, welcome with that Sarah Marwan. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Sarah, of course, we would like to know more about you, starting from the beginnings, reaching about dreams and establishing them. Tell us more about you.
Well, I think architecture and dealing within this industry was a dream of mine since I was in school. I was into arts and drawing. And then later on, towards end of high school, I did an electric invention. I thought, I'm smart. I shouldn't waste it. So I was like, okay, architecture is a bit of arts and engineering. It sounded legit, something I can, yeah. So I got into it and I started working right away since 2010. I was like the only female in sight in a whole mountain. And it was quite exciting to be like,
to be honest.
Very much. It kind of like pushed me, if anything. I felt like, whoa, I want to be in this industry to show what we can do. And from there I kept on going. I came back here and started working on mega projects such as Jahra Hospital and a lot of hospitals, which was very technical, and I wasn't really happy with what I was doing. I was like, okay, it is engineering, but it's not giving me that satisfaction.
That opportunity to explore more of architecture field.
So I moved to Nicosia, in Greek side of Cyprus, and I continued my studies. And when I went there, it was a lot of sustainability and social sustainability. And when you design something with a like aesthetics, they'd be like, what are you doing? Like, no, everything has to be for a reason. And you can do it because we're living in a world where Europe is hitting 40 degrees. We had to be very conscious about what we're designing. And that's when I learned that there's a bigger meaning to architecture than just beautiful buildings. And we actually take a big part in how you feel, how you live. Your whole life is based on architecture and urban design. It's how you integrate with it. So that's when I was like even more interested, and it kind of changed my perspective towards this topic. And the further I got into it, the more I realized that I enjoyed designing and I enjoy concepts more than the actual technical part. Because the technical part, I feel like everybody can do that, but it's the creativity comes in that first few stages. And that's what I aspire to do.
Yes, and it's really great to hear from you at that point, because we do actually associate architecture by the beauty of, let's say, buildings, the details, the design, but not thinking that they actually do think, as you just said, about sustainability and about how, let's say, important it is to think about the environment and all of that associated with the building itself in order for it to stay more longer. Now, from that point, we've seen so many, let's say, buildings that was built in Kuwait from, let's say, 60s, 70s are still here and standing, and people now are actually more visiting them in order for them to look at the architecture side of it, the details that was presented and how strong it is, comparing of course to different kind of, let's say, buildings. How do you see and evaluate that? Like, did you actually manage to explore that and to see that kind of, let's say, buildings?
I love old buildings, and I feel so sad every time they tear them down. Like, Sawaber made me cry.
It made us all cry.
It's like, it has that spirit. And buildings do have spirits, and it's called Genuous Loce, where you go into a place and it kind of makes you feel something. Old buildings, and the way they were built, they were very eco-friendly. They were used mud, materials from surrounding, they used the wind, they understood the sun, all these elements that now we're just like letting go, AC will fix everything. But no, don't design just because your cousin designed this or that. Like, do things with consciousness, just like it was done before. They did it to their environment, not just like a building in any place, anytime, you know.
Now, Sarah, reaching about this point that you just highlighted, which is something really important, to try to build something that is really good, not to copy everyone who actually, let's say, building, especially when it comes into homes. Like, you can actually see that whenever you go to an area, there is actually, let's say, a copy of each and different designs, but with different colors, different cuts, and so on. That makes and raise a question that have you been associated with the family, friends, member, or even maybe, let's say, closest people to you, talking about, let's say, creating a design, creating an architecture, let's say, home model, and so on. Like, do you actually love to do that, or do you prefer, let's say, dealing with bigger projects?
I have a studio called Studio Fabrica. We don't take on many projects because when a client comes to us, we take our time in educating them in what they actually need, and not just to copy other projects and do, like, your home has to be built around you, has to accommodate your everyday habits, and we are different each family from the other, and that should reflect into your home. So yeah, I love what I do.
And it's really great to hear that, to be honest, because we've seen so many, let's say, engineers who actually started to take their field, but feeling enthusiastic about architecture is something different, to be honest. Especially as you just said, it is more of a designing, more of a, let's say, getting the beauty of the building itself, but taking into consideration the most important, let's say, details itself. Moving on from that point, have you ever, let's say, you've said that you've loved art so many, let's say, from the beginning until now. How much did that help you in growing your, let's say, art side, especially when it comes into the architecture itself?
I took my time because it wasn't easy. Being a female in this industry was never easy. So it's that passion and love that kept me going throughout time. And that same love kind of got me to explore different aspects of architecture. There were times where I got into, this, I worked for a while with NGOs where they tried to use, because my master's was urban design, and we tried to implement it on the social aspect. So there was once an event called IASA, and it was held in Malta, where I was the only Arab, not only just female, the only Arab there. And we were trying to utilize this urban methods into how can we integrate refugees into new areas, and how the people there weren't accepting them, and how can we integrate that using architecture and the urban fabric. And yeah,
it was something interesting.
Yes, very much, actually.
And it's really great to hear that you've been working there, not only, let's say, being the only Arab female, but also being a female itself. It's also something, let's say, challenging, but also very great to hear about it itself. Moving on about your, let's say, lifestyle, your hobbies. Have you been associated with so many, let's say, exploring new things, especially that we know that engineering life is really busy, and sometimes you even take your designs and everything to home and starting to deal with it, but of course you have to keep space for yourself. Tell us more about that.
I'm a workaholic. My husband knows that, like 4 a.m. I'm working, 2 a.m. whatever time I'm working, but keeping a balanced life is something I learned recently, because working too much, you're consuming your brain. Your creativity is just like dying out. So actually, the latest thing I've been into is paddle. Yes, everybody.
Yes, so you finally tried paddle.
I used to play ping pong. I was like a champion in ping pong, so I was like, okay, this should
be fun. And it's more like easy. To me, to be honest, it's everything when it comes into becoming into a table and trying to, let's say, fit everything with that is more challenging, to be honest, than going running, let's say, in paddle, because paddle has its own, let's say, spacious space that you can run.
Smaller than tennis, bigger than ping pong.
So ping pong is like more challenging, to be honest. So tell us about that. How did you find it so far?
In the beginning, I was like, ooh, it's the new thing. Everybody's getting into it. I'll give it some time. Maybe it'll die out. And then my friends kept on going, like, it's really competitive. It's fun. I play tennis. I play ping pong. And I also play like a little martial arts here and there. So I was like, okay, might as well.
Give it a try.
Yeah, and it was really fun.
So how was it for the first 1 hour? To me, I thought 1 hour is not enough, but
I die after 1 hour.
I reached to a half hour. It's like, no,
at the end of it, done.
So it was really, let's say, very important for a person to actually keep in mind that though we love our work, though we like to, of course, achieve in our work, but to keep in consideration that we actually have to even balance that with our life in order for us to be more creative in that perspective. Tell us about the family support, how supportive they were when you started to tell them, like, I'm going to take this field as the career and I'm going to move on that.
Well, honestly, I was a bit of a quirky child, so my family didn't really like see the potential in me, which was my thrive, really. But my partner, my life partner and my business partner, both of them have been an amazing support. And there are a lot of times, because when it comes to art and design, you often like see it in a, it's a design thing. There's no right and wrong. You're never sure. But when someone always tells you, like, no, this is good, you're good, you keep going, it does motivate you.
Yes, and it thrives, of course, when it comes into that. Dealing with, recently we've seen through social media that one of the architectures, engineers are actually getting award for a certain building here in Kuwait that was built in a really good way, that it was really, let's say, not only thinking about how creative it was from outside, but even within the interior inside was something different. So when it comes into that, do you actually let's say get tempted by creating something that could actually move on to, let's say, getting awards on, let's say, having a creative building, creative design, and so forth? How does it work in that field itself?
I think every architect has a dream of being awarded. When I was in university, I used to do a lot of competitions for that. I won some, lost some, and it gave me that kind of like, I want to keep doing that. But I think now I don't see it as my goal, because there's a saying where it says architects design where for other architects to see. We need that affirmation. But now I'm like, no, thank you, I'm good. I have my own affirmation. I like what I do, and what I do has to do very much with making sure people are good in the space, feeling great, not like it really affects your psyche. So we don't want that. So that's what I focus on. It's how to make sure the user is content in his space.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It was really a pleasure having you here and knowing more about, let's say, architecture life itself. And from now on, we're going to make sure to look at everyone in the room who's ever looking at the ceilings could be an architect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And with that, dear viewers, that was our interview. Hopefully you enjoyed watching us.